Hey, I just wanted to drop in really quickly before this video starts to remind all of you it is okay to be angry. God's word tells us it does. Paul talks about it in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. He says to be angry, but do not sin, and don't let the sun go down on your wrath. So I just want to remind you really quickly, it is okay to be angry. We just have to make sure that we're able to control it to where it doesn't get out of control. Anger or wrath, anger and wrath are kind of the same thing. So anger, wrath is listed as one of the 7 deadly sins. And it's listed as one of the 7 deadly sins because it's one of those sins that inspires more sin. So if you continue to let your anger fester, you will eventually sin. And that sin will increase to more sin. So we have to make sure that we keep that anger under control. It's okay to get upset, but we have to cast our cares before the Lord. So I just wanted to say that really quickly before this video starts. And here it is. I hope you enjoy. Hey ladies, Regina Phillips here, and I am back with another episode of Kingdom Car Chronicles. I pray all of you are having a blessed Thursday. I want to share a very important word, or I guess I'll say a very heavy topic of encouragement with you ladies tonight, specifically to my married ladies, but it can be advantageous to anyone who listens to this this moment of encouragement that I want to share with you. I'm not going to be before you guys very long. I'm not even scripted tonight. I just thought about this, and I just want to share it with you guys in hopes that it would be of encouragement to you. So we know that God's word tells us not to allow the sun to go down on our wrath. So ladies, have you ever thought about why God's word says that? Why does he tell us not to let the sun go down on our wrath? Well, let's talk about wrath. What is wrath? Wrath is, we know it's anger. And God's word also tells us to be angry, but not to sin. So anything God tells us to do and we don't do it, it's sin. Anything he tells us not to do and we do it, it's sin. So his word tells us it's okay to be angry, just don't sin. But he also says not to let the sun go down on your wrath, meaning don't go to bed angry. So I want to hone in to married couples, ladies. Oftentimes, you know, things can come up where we get upset with our spouses about whatever. It's inevitable to have an argument in marriage because we're not always going to agree on everything. And it's okay not to agree. And sometimes it's healthy to have heated fellowship is what I like to call it. But it's important that we make sure that we don't go to bed mad at our husbands or mad at our wives because God tells us not to. And have you ever wondered why? Well, number one, if you do, you're sinning. And if you've watched any of my spiritual warfare videos, we know that sin is an open door for demonic influence. And so there's I guess our black culture, there's a colloquialism that says, I woke up like this. And so oftentimes we go to bed not forgiving our spouses for whatever the disagreement is. So we go to bed and we've allowed the sun to go down on our wrath, and then we wake up and things are there's still tension between us. But if it's never dealt with, days, weeks, months, and sometimes even years down the road, because that door was left open in the moment you did something that God asked you not to do, things begin to die around you. Wrath is one of the 7 deadly sins listed in God's word. And so I want to encourage you that, you know, whatever the disagreement is, whatever the friction may be, make sure you don't go to bed upset with your husband, and make sure you don't go to bed upset with your wife. If you call a truce, show the love of Christ to each other, because that's what we're supposed to do. Even when we're upset with one another, We're still supposed to show love. And so it's not always easy to do it in the moment. So you may have to take a few moments to separate, or a couple hours to cool off, whatever you need. But make sure that no matter what, when your husband goes to bed, when your wife goes to bed, she knows, he knows that you love them, so that the enemy does not have room to come in and infiltrate while you're sleeping. Because when we sleep, our spirit is always awake. And so the enemy comes in at night and he sows tears in our minds. He sows tears in our thoughts. He sows tears in our subconscious. And so when you wake up, you start having all these thoughts and these feelings that you take to be your own. But in reality, it's because you left a door open, because you went to bed and you were still angry with your husband, or you were still angry with your wife. And so now you have these thoughts about your husband. You have these thoughts about your wife. You have these thoughts that you didn't have at one point, and you may not even recognize that it's there, but you begin to take it as your own because the enemy was allowed and had legal right to come and sow tears while you were sleeping. So if you woke up like that, be sure to take note of how you went to bed, especially if it's a way that's not pleasing to our Father. So I encourage you to be the bigger person, husband, be the bigger person, wife, and go to your spouse and say, hey, I messed up, or I was wrong. Even if you weren't, apologize. It's okay to be the bigger person. If you love this person and you're going to be with them for the rest of your life, you're supposed to love them the way that Christ loves us anyway. So if you believe in the God that you say that you serve, then be the bigger person, and don't go to bed tonight upset with your husband or upset with your wife about whatever the issue is. Sometimes it's a process to work through some of our disagreements, but in the meantime, love conquers all. So whatever's wrong, allow love to make it right, and don't give the enemy room to come in and sow a tear while you're asleep that would affect your progress in getting through whatever the issue is. Because a lot of times we make it harder on ourselves when we leave that door open for us to even get past whatever it is that we may be disagreeing on. Now the enemy has access to the situation, and so it's blown up bigger than it needs to be. So I simply want to encourage you tonight not to allow the sun to go down on your wrath. That's all I have for you. I pray that it helps somebody. If it helps one person, then that's all that matters. I also want to ask you, ladies, gentlemen, whoever's watching, please like this video if it was an encouragement to you. And if you know somebody that whose marriage can benefit from it, also share it with them. The way that this information gets out to more people is the more likes and shares and even comments. So leave me a comment. Also, really quickly, I talk to married couples, but even if you're single and you get angry at a friend, or you get angry at a family member or a coworker or whoever, don't go to bed with that anger in your heart. Don't go to bed with that anger on your mind, because this very same thing can happen to you. And even though you don't have probably don't have an intimate relationship with your coworkers or some of your friends, it still will allow the enemy to have a foothold in your life. And we don't want the enemy to have a foothold in our life in any way. So not only for husbands and wives, but for anyone. God's word didn't say that was specifically for husbands and wives, but he did say, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. So make sure you go to bed tonight. Forgive those who have hurt you. Forgive those who have wronged you. If you haven't saw my video on Just Let It Go, I encourage you to watch that video as well. It's not always easy to forgive, but it is simply a choice. So choose to forgive, let it go. Pray to God before you go to bed. Give him all the cares of your heart, and rest well, knowing that you didn't allow anger to settle in your heart as you fall asleep. So y'all have a good night. I pray that tomorrow is full of joy of the Lord, and that everything goes according to God's will for your life. That's all I have. If you don't remember anything that I've said tonight, please remember that I love you. God bless.